2 a.m., 420 million at risk. The cleaning lady saved everything, and the billionaire CEO changed her future. Before we begin the story, tell us in the comments, from which city are you watching? And at the end, do not forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. 2:18 in the morning. Adrian Sullivan was about to lose $420 million. The red alert flashed on his phone screen like a panicked heart. Critical server. Imminent failure. He did not think twice. He ran out of his mansion in La Jolla still wearing pajamas, those ridiculously expensive silk pajamas his mother insisted matched successful men, and got in the car without even closing the bedroom door. There was no time to change clothes. There was no time to think. Adrian Sullivan, CEO of Soltech Industries, one of the largest sustainable energy technology companies in the United States, did not get where he was by hesitating. He was 35, had a master's degree from a respected university, 3 innovation awards, and an impeccable reputation. And no hacker was going to destroy that. He sped down the empty streets of San Diego, the dark Pacific Ocean on his left, the night breeze coming through the open windows. 10 minutes. Only 10 minutes. If he could make it in 10 minutes, maybe there was still a chance. The Soltech building shone on the horizon like a tower of glass and technological promises. Adrian parked in the reserved spot, crooked, taking 2 spaces, but who cared, and ran inside. The night guard opened his mouth to say something, but Adrian was already inside the elevator. 23rd floor. Server room. The doors opened. The reinforced glass door was slightly open. Impossible. Only 5 people in the company had access to that room. Adrian pushed the door slowly, prepared to face a digital chaos genius, maybe someone hooded, surrounded by bright screens, typing sinister code. What he found was a woman in a blue cleaning uniform, kneeling between colorful cables, pointing her finger at a server as if scolding a stubborn child. June was finishing her night shift. Cleaning the technical floors always happened after midnight, so it would not interrupt the workday. When she noticed the flashing red lights. For the past 3 days, she had noticed small instabilities in the servers. A beep out of place here, a yellow light there, nothing that triggered an automatic alert, but enough for someone who understood technology and had been cleaning that room for some time to realize something was not right. But that night was different. The red lights meant the situation had escalated to critical. That was when she decided to act. "Kevin, listen," she said, serious. "I know you are upset with Roger because of that poorly done update on Tuesday, but do you know what we do when we are upset? We talk. We do not freeze and threaten to bring the entire company down with us." Adrian blinked. "Kevin? Look," she continued, connecting an Ethernet cable. "You want attention? I understand. But there are better ways to ask for help, all right? Like, I don't know, sending an email, turning on a yellow light, anything but this." She pressed 3 buttons on the side panel. "Done. Now restart, and let's pretend this never happened. I will not tell anyone you had a moment, and you do not wake me up again at 2 in the morning. Deal?" The server made a soft beep, almost as if agreeing. The red lights blinked twice and returned to a steady green. Silence. Adrian Sullivan, a man who led meetings with international investors without stuttering, stood completely frozen. The woman stood up, wiped her hands on her uniform, and turned around. That was when she saw him. Her eyes ran over Adrian from head to toe. The messy hair, the baby blue silk pajamas, the 5-star hotel slippers. She tilted her head slightly. "Silk?" she asked, lifting one eyebrow. "Do you sleep on a cloud or something like that?" Adrian opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. I am the CEO. "Oh," she nodded slowly, as if everything made sense now. "So that is why the pajamas are baby blue. It is like a power statement?" "It is not baby blue," Adrian replied too quickly, his face warming. "It is cerulean." "Cerulean," she repeated, testing the word. "So that is like baby blue, but with a bank account?" He had no answer for that. June turned her attention back to the server and gave the metal a gentle tap. "Good boy, Kevin. I knew you would cooperate." "You named the server Kevin," Adrian said, still trying to process everything. "Yes." She picked up a cloth from the cleaning cart and began wiping dust from the panel. "And that one is Roger. And the one in the corner is Deborah. But she is a little dramatic, so I avoid talking to her after 11. Adrian looked at the servers, then at her, then at the monitors showing the system was stable. $420 million. Saved. She had no idea how big what she had just solved really was. For June, it was just another technical problem on a work night. But for him, for the company, for the investors, it was the kind of disaster that destroyed careers and made headlines. And all of it had been prevented by a cleaning lady who had nicknames for electronic equipment. "How did you do that?" he asked, taking a step forward. His foot slipped slightly. There was nothing on the floor, but his body decided that moment was the perfect time to question gravity. His hand reached out instinctively and grabbed her shoulder. June turned her face. They stayed like that for 2 seconds that felt like 20. Too close, eyes locked. "Did you just trip on air?" she asked, with a small smile at the corner of her mouth. "No," Adrian lied, letting go of her shoulder too fast and almost tripping again. "There was something on the floor." "There was," she agreed, clearly not believing him. "The air. Very tricky." He adjusted his pajamas as if that restored any dignity. June crossed her arms, tilting her head. "So, you rushed all the way here in pajamas because you saw the alert?" "Yes." "And you drove across the whole city?" "Yes." "In hotel slippers?" Adrian looked down at his own feet. "They are comfortable." "I am sure they are," she said, going back to arranging the cables on the floor. "They look like the ones that come with a gift robe." "They did not come with a robe," he answered, but immediately regretted it because yes, they had come with a robe. June smiled. Of course not. She finished arranging the cables with almost obsessive precision. Adrian realized she was not just placing wires randomly, she was organizing them by color, by function, leaving everything perfectly aligned. "You understand technology," he said. It was not a question. She paused, but did not look at him. "I understand how to keep things working." "That is not an answer." "It is the best you will get at 2 in the morning," June said, grabbing the cleaning cart. "Kevin is happy. I am tired. How about we pretend you did not see me talking to electronics, and I pretend you did not show up here looking like a spa commercial?" Adrian took a step forward. "Wait, what is your name?" She stopped at the door, looked at him over her shoulder, and smiled. It was not a happy smile, it was a tired one. "Good night, boss," and she left. Adrian stood in the middle of the server room in cerulean pajamas, surrounded by equipment that apparently had names and personalities. He looked at Kevin. Kevin did not reply. "Of course," Adrian murmured. "You only talked to her." He looked at the monitors. Stable system. Transactions running. Data protected. $420 million saved by a cleaning lady who argued with machines as if they were people. And suddenly, Adrian Sullivan, CEO of a billion-dollar company, a man who planned every move 3 months in advance, realized something that made no sense. He needed to find out who that woman was, even if it meant tripping through every hallway in the company. Adrian Sullivan did not sleep. He spent the next 5 hours searching the HR system until he found her full name. June Avery, 28 years old, hired 6 months ago by the outsourced cleaning company. Education? High school diploma. No mention of college, no technical certifications. And still, she saved $420 million by talking to a server named Kevin. At 8 in the morning, he sent a formal email. "Mrs. Avery, please come to meeting room 4B at 9 a.m. for discussion about last night's events. Sincerely, Adrian Sullivan, CEO." He read it 3 times before hitting send. Formal, professional, appropriate. Now, at 9:12 in the morning, he waited in the meeting room adjusting his tie for the 10th time, rehearsing in his mind what he was going to say. "Thank you for solving the technical problem." "No, too casual. I would like to understand how you learned your skills." "Too formal." "Seriously, what did you do to that server?" "Honest, but inappropriate." The door opened. June walked in 12 minutes late, the blue cleaning uniform wrinkled, her hair in a crooked ponytail, and an expression that clearly said, "I did not sleep enough for this conversation." "Sorry I am late," she said, dropping her backpack on the chair. "The smart elevator decided I did not deserve to go up today." Adrian blinked. "What do you mean?" "Like this. I walked in, pressed the button for the 23rd floor, and it took me to the basement. 3 times. On the 4th try, the doors opened, it beeped twice, and closed right in my face." June dropped into the chair. "I'm sure it was payback for me messing with the ventilation system yesterday. Elevators don't get revenge," Adrian said slowly. "Kevin shouldn't lose control either, but here we are." She crossed her arms. "So, pajama boss, what did I do this time?" Adrian felt his face warm. "I wasn't. That was an emergency. A cerulean silk emergency." June agreed way too quickly for it not to be teasing. "Got it." He took a deep breath. "Control. Professionalism. Miss Avery, June, Miss Avery is my aunt who never invites me to family dinners. June, he corrected, adjusting his tie again. I would like to discuss what happened early this morning. Specifically, how you got access to the server room and how you solved a problem that our entire technical team would need hours to identify. June tilted her head, studying him. You're nervous. I'm not. You adjusted your tie about 7 times since I walked in. He froze with his hand halfway to the tie. 8, she corrected. Now it's 8. Adrian let go of the tie and placed his hands on the desk, trying to recover some authority. I just want to understand. He stepped forward. His left foot decided that was the perfect moment to forget how to walk. He stumbled, just enough to grab the edge of the desk so he wouldn't fall flat on his face. June widened her eyes. You just tripped again. No, I saw it. It was the rug, Adrian said, pointing at the perfectly smooth porcelain floor. June looked at the floor, then at him. What rug? There's a very small uneven spot. On the porcelain. Yes. That was installed last week. How do you know that? Because I've cleaned this floor for 6 months and complained 3 times that the old rug was falling apart. She stood, walked to where he had stumbled, and tapped her foot on the floor. Look. Smooth. No uneven spots. You tripped over air again. Adrian straightened his suit. Can we get back to the topic? Of course. The topic of you tripping every time you get nervous? I don't get nervous. You're sweating. It's warm. The room is cold, June said, pointing to the thermostat. I know because I said it yesterday. He had no answer for that. June returned to the chair, but this time with a small smile. Not a mocking one. A smile of someone who just discovered something interesting. All right, she said, folding her arms. You want to know how I fixed the server? Yes. And you're not going to fire me? The question caught Adrian off guard. Why would I fire you? You saved the company. June shrugged, but something in her expression changed. It tightened. It looked tired. Because usually when I fix things I'm not supposed to touch, I lose the job. It happened 3 times. Once they accused me of stealing because I fixed the manager's computer. Another time they said I was lying about having technical knowledge because someone like me wouldn't know how to program. Her voice didn't change, but Adrian heard the hurt behind it. Someone like you? He repeated quietly. A janitor, June said simply. To most people, if you clean bathrooms, you're not supposed to know the difference between a server and a toaster. Adrian sat across from her, forgetting the formal posture. Where did you learn? June hesitated. Internet. Public library. YouTube. Some free online courses. She shrugged. I like technology, always have, but college is expensive and I had rent to pay. So I did what I could. And at night, when no one is watching, I practice. Practice. On the equipment, he looked at him, almost challenging. I know I shouldn't. I know it's against the rules, but I don't break anything. I don't take anything. I just want to learn. Silence. Adrian watched her, truly watched her. The tired eyes, the calloused hands, the defensive posture of someone used to explaining themselves. And then he did something that surprised both of them. Have you ever considered working with technology officially? June blinked. Our IT team didn't identify the issue you solved in 30 seconds. That's not luck. That's talent. I don't have a degree, she said quickly. No company hires without a degree. This company just did, Adrian said, standing. Or will. If you accept. June stood still, looking at him as if he had just spoken Mandarin. You're offering me a job? I'm offering an opportunity. Junior technical support. You'll work with the team, learn what you don't know, and then we'll see where it goes. Why? Her voice came out small. Adrian smiled, a small but sincere smile. Because someone who names servers and argues with elevators is exactly the kind of brilliant chaos this company needs. June opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. You're very strange for a CEO. You talk to machines. Touche. She held out her hand. He shook it. And when their fingers touched, Adrian felt something that had nothing to do with technology or business. He felt that everything had just changed. June left the meeting room 20 minutes later with a temporary contract, a new badge, and a strange feeling in her chest that she could not name. Adrian stayed in the empty room, looking at the chair where she had been sitting, and he realized, with absolute certainty, that he was completely lost. Victor Hale always arrived 15 minutes before any meeting. Control, preparation, advantage. But that morning, when he walked down the hallway of the 23rd floor at 9:50, something caught his attention. Adrian Sullivan, standing alone in meeting room 4B, staring at an empty chair with an expression Victor had never seen on the CEO's face. Interest. Victor stopped, watching through the glass. Adrian held a signed contract in his hands, a small smile on his lips, not that polite corporate smile, but something genuine. Strange. Victor straightened his tie and walked in. "Good morning, Adrian," he said, friendly, casual. "Everything all right? You look different." Adrian turned too fast, almost spilling his coffee. "Victor, yes, everything is great. I was just finishing a hiring." "A hiring?" Victor tilted his head, curious. "Funny? I don't remember approving any new position for IT." "It was an executive decision," Adrian said, placing the contract in the folder. "We needed urgent reinforcement." Victor felt a mental alert switch on. Adrian did not make impulsive hires. Never. "Urgent," he repeated, stepping closer. "And who was the lucky one?" "June Avery." Adrian hesitated. "She worked in cleaning here 6 months ago." Victor blinked. "You hired a cleaning worker to work in IT?" "I hired someone who saved this company from a $420 million collapse at dawn." Victor's stomach tightened. $420 million. Server. Dawn. He had programmed that failure for 3 in the morning. A small, controlled collapse, with enough time for him to solve it heroically and strengthen his position with the board. 15 minutes of calculated chaos. Except someone fixed the problem 9 minutes before the planned time. And now Adrian was hiring that person. Victor forced a light laugh, keeping his tone casual. $420 million? What happened? "Critical server failure," Adrian explained. "I got the alert at 2 in the morning. When I arrived, June was already in the server room fixing it. She identified the problem in minutes. She touched the system. She might have seen the modifications." Victor pressed his fingers against the leather folder, but kept the smile. "A cleaning worker, alone, in the server room, at 2 in the morning." He let the words hang. "Adrian, doesn't that sound suspicious to you?" "It sounds like talent," Adrian answered firmly. "Or opportunism," Victor replied softly. "Think with me. Someone without credentials creates a problem, solves it heroically, and suddenly has full access to the systems? It's the oldest trick in the book." Adrian frowned. "She didn't cause anything. I saw the logs." "Logs can be manipulated," Victor said, taking 2 steps forward. "Adrian, I understand gratitude, but you've known her for less than 12 hours. What if she planned this just to get this job?" Silence. Victor saw doubt pass, just for a second, through Adrian's eyes. "Good. Look," he said, softening his tone, "maybe I'm being paranoid, but it would be wise to talk to her. Check motivations for safety." Adrian took a deep breath. "She should be in HR now, picking up materials. You can meet her if you want." Victor smiled, the kind that never reached his eyes. "Great idea." Victor found June 20 minutes later on the 17th floor, standing in front of the IT room door, holding a box of office supplies and clearly unsure if she should enter or not. He watched her for a few seconds before approaching. Young, inexperienced. She probably didn't see anything compromising, but he needed to be sure. "Miss Avery," Victor said, extending his hand with a professional smile. "What a pleasure to finally meet you officially." June turned around, surprised. "Oh, hi. You are?" "Victor Hale, Chief Operating Officer." He shook her hand firmly, watching her reaction. "Adrian told me about your work early this morning. Impressive." "It was just a temperamental server," June said, adjusting the box. "Temperamental," Victor repeated, testing her. "And what exactly did you do to fix it?" "The ventilation system was out of sync. Kevin overheated. He just needed to be reconnected and restarted." "Kevin?" "The main server. I give them names. It helps me organize." Victor forced a laugh, but his mind was moving fast. She didn't mention code. She didn't mention adjusting parameters. Maybe she only saw the symptom. "And how did you identify the problem?" he asked casually. "Abnormal temperature, error logs, ventilation outside the pattern," June said. Basic. Victor relaxed slightly. She didn't know, not really, but she was smart, and now she had access. Impressive for someone who learned, where again? Internet, YouTube, online courses. Victor let out a laugh that sounded more condescending than he intended. "YouTube." He tilted his head. "Well, corporate technology is more complex than tutorials, dear. We have protocols, compliance, ISO 27001, and GDPR for European data, SOC 2 Type 2 for auditing, NIST cybersecurity framework," June added without blinking. Victor's smile froze. She knows too much. "You studied security frameworks." "I read the manuals. They're available online." Victor straightened his tie, now reassessing everything. She's not just smart, she's dangerous. If she started reviewing historical systems, checking old logs, asking questions, he needed her out of the way. Fast. Well, Victor said, stepping closer and lowering his voice, I hope you adapt, Miss Avery. Corporate technology can be unforgiving, especially for people without formal training. His smile cooled. It would be unfortunate to see you make a serious mistake so early on. Those mistakes tend to be irreversible. June met his gaze. I don't usually make mistakes. Everyone does eventually, Victor said softly. It's only a matter of when, and who is watching when it happens. He gave her a light, almost paternal tap on the shoulder and walked away. When he turned the corner, he pulled out his phone. June Avery was a problem, and Victor Hale was excellent at eliminating problems. June stood still, gripping the box tightly, her heart racing. Her phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. Be careful who you trust. Not everyone here wants you to succeed. A friend. She looked toward the empty hallway where Victor had disappeared. And for the first time since accepting the job, she felt she had entered a game where someone was already playing against her. June Avery had exactly 3 certainties in life. Technology made sense, people didn't always, and her first official day on Saltech's IT team would be a complete disaster. She was right about the third. At 8 o'clock Monday morning, June walked into the IT room on the 17th floor wearing her most professional white blouse, bought on Saturday for $20 on clearance, dress pants that tightened a bit at the waist, and her new badge that still smelled like plastic. 7 people looked at her at the same time. Total silence. Hi, June said, waving awkwardly. I'm June. The new technician? Junior. Junior technician. A man with thick glasses and messy hair stood up from his desk. Marcus Chen, team lead. He shook her hand with excessive force. So you're the famous cleaning lady who saved $420 million. Former cleaning lady, June corrected, trying not to wince at the handshake. Of course, Marcus said, though his tone showed he wouldn't forget that anytime soon. Welcome to Organized Chaos. That's your station. He pointed to a desk in the corner, surrounded by 3 monitors, tangled cables, and what looked like the remains of a mummified sandwich. Does someone work there? June asked. Used to, a woman with pink hair said from the next desk. Derek. He asked for a transfer to the Seattle branch last week because he said the servers here had negative energy. June blinked. Negative energy. We thought he was joking, the woman continued. But then he started burning incense and talking to the machines. Oh, June said slowly. So, talking to machines is considered strange here? Everyone looked at her. You talk to machines? Marcus asked. I give them names, sometimes, to organize. The room went silent again, then the pink-haired woman burst into laughter. I like her. I'm Riley. She reached over the desk divider to shake June's hand. And listen, if you can make the backup system stop beeping every Tuesday at 3 in the afternoon, I'll buy you lunch for a month. It beeps every Tuesday? June asked, intrigued. At 3 on the dot for 6 weeks, no one knows why. June smiled. Challenge accepted. At 9:15, Adrian Sullivan casually walked past the 17th floor. Good morning, team, he said, stopping at the door of the IT room with his hands in his pockets, trying to look natural and failing completely. Just checking if everything is working. Marcus looked at him, confused. Mr. Sullivan, you have never come here before. Well, it is important to be present, to know how things are going. Adrian looked directly at June, who was crouched under the desk trying to identify an orange cable. June, he said, his voice coming out 2 tones higher than usual. How was the first day? June hit her head on the desk as she stood up. Ow, she rubbed her head. It's great, meeting everyone, finding out where things are. Like, this cable, I still don't know what it does. It's the printer, Riley said. Oh, that makes sense. Adrian stood there for another 5 seconds, clearly not knowing what to say. Great, working, and he left. Riley turned to June with one eyebrow raised. He never comes here. He said that? Never, Riley repeated, smiling. Interesting. At 10:30, Adrian passed by again. I forgot to mention that there is fresh coffee in the break room. At 11:15, he passed by once more. Has anyone seen my pen? Special pen. Very important. At noon, Marcus stopped typing and looked at the door. Okay, now he is being obvious. Adrian showed up for the 4th time. I just need to check the thermostat. It feels cold in here. It's within the normal range, June said, pointing to the panel on the wall. Ideal temperature for electronic equipment. Oh, right. Adrian straightened his tie. Well, carry on. When he left, the whole room burst into whispers. Can someone explain what is happening? Marcus asked. Riley looked at June with a huge smile. I think our CEO has a little crush. He does not, June said way too fast, her face warming. He is just attentive with all employees. He does not know my name, a guy named Tyler said from the back of the room. I have worked here for 3 years. He called me Martha once, Riley added. My name is on my badge. June covered her face with her hands. This is embarrassing. It is sweet, Riley corrected. And look, if the CEO wants to give you special attention, enjoy it. Maybe we will finally get budget for new equipment. At 2 in the afternoon, June was buried in cables and code trying to understand why the backup system beeped every Tuesday when someone knocked on the door. Delivery for the IT team, a voice said. June looked up. An assistant from the executive department walked in, holding a tray with 5 cups of coffee from the expensive cafe 3 blocks away. Mr. Sullivan asked me to bring these, he explained, handing out the cups. He said it was an investment in team productivity. Marcus grabbed a cup, smelled it, and widened his eyes. This is from Espresso Lounge. It costs $8 a cup. The assistant handed the last cup to June. This one has a name, he said, showing her the cup with June written on the side. Caramel with almond milk, Mr. Sullivan's instructions. June turned red. Thank you, even though she did not understand how he knew what she liked. The assistant waved and left. The room was silent for 3 seconds. How does he know what you like? Riley asked. And he sent someone to get one specifically for you? Tyler added, impressed. Marcus drank his coffee, shaking his head. Okay, officially, something is going on here. June took a sip. It was perfect, and went back to the cables, trying to ignore her fast heartbeat. At 4 in the afternoon, June finally discovered the backup problem. She was alone in the room. Everyone had gone to a meeting, so she did what she always did when she needed to think. She talked to the equipment. All right, Roger, she said to the backup server, kneeling beside it. Let's have a serious conversation here. Why do you beep every Tuesday at 3? She opened the diagnostic panel. Full check scheduled, but the notification protocol is outdated. June tilted her head. Roger, you are literally calling for help, and no one is hearing you because you are speaking on the wrong frequency. She typed quickly, adjusting the code. I understand you know? June continued, testing the changes. Sometimes we do everything right, but people do not see it. They keep ignoring it. Like, I don't know, when you clean a place perfectly, but everyone only notices when something breaks. The server made a soft beep. Exactly, you understand me. She smiled. And do you know what is even stranger? The CEO of the company, the man who runs all of this, he sent coffee specifically for me, with the correct order. Who does that, Roger? Another beep. Yes, I also do not know what to think. June finished the code and restarted the system. But let us focus. You are going to stop beeping now, all right? And I will. I do not know. Try not to panic with this whole situation. The server purred softly, returning to normal operation. Silence. No beep. Good boy, June said, giving the metal a small tap. When the team returned, June announced, I solved the backup problem. Marcus blinked. How? It was only one outdated line of code. 6 weeks, Riley said, shocked. 6 weeks trying to solve this. Marcus looked at June with an expression she could not read. You are good. Thank you. I mean, very good. Thank you? He went back to his desk, but June noticed something different in his eyes. Respect. For the first time in her life, someone looked at her and saw talent instead of a cleaning uniform. At 6 in the afternoon, when almost everyone had already left, Adrian passed by for the 5th time. Still here? June lifted her eyes from the screen, finishing a few things. He walked in slowly, hands in his pockets. I heard you solved the backup problem. It was not that hard. Marcus said the team tried for 6 weeks. June shrugged, but she was smiling. Adrian moved closer to her desk, looking at the monitors filled with code. You fit in well here. You passed by here 5 times today to check that? He laughed, a low, genuine laugh. Was I that obvious? A little. Sorry, I just wanted to be sure you were all right. June looked at him, really looked, and she saw something in his eyes that made her heart speed up. I am all right, she said softly. Better than all right, thank you, for the coffee too. I remembered you liked it. You sent your assistant to get it. CEOs do not have time to go out and pick up coffee, he said, but smiled. But they do have time to make sure the right people receive the right coffee. They stayed there, looking at each other, the office empty and silent around them. Then Adrian's phone rang, breaking the moment. He looked at the screen and sighed. Meeting. I have to go. Of course. He walked to the door, stopped, and turned. June? Yes? Good night. And he left. June kept looking at the empty doorway for a long time. Then she smiled. Her phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. Be careful with distractions. They can be costly. The smile disappeared. The next morning, June woke up with the message still burning in her mind. Be careful with distractions. They can be costly. She spent the whole night trying to figure out who could be sending it. A jealous coworker? Someone in cleaning with resentment? Or something worse? But when she arrived at the office at 8 o'clock sharp, she decided to ignore it. Today would be a normal day. No drama. No mystery. The universe, apparently, had other plans. At 9:30, panic began. June was in the break room getting coffee when she heard fast footsteps in the hallway and tense voices coming from the 28th floor. It is not working. I already tried restarting 3 times. The investors arrive in 10 minutes. She recognized Marcus's voice, and he never sounded that desperate. June left the coffee on the counter and ran up the stairs to the 28th floor. The closer she got to the executive conference room, the louder the chaos became. She peeked through the half-open door. Adrian stood in front of a giant screen, holding a tablet as if it were a grenade about to explode. 3 assistants surrounded him like nervous birds, and Marcus typed frantically on a laptop, sweating. The synchronization system froze, Marcus said, tense. I cannot access the presentation files. How long to fix it? Adrian asked. Half an hour, maybe. They arrive in 8 minutes. June saw the exact moment Adrian realized he was lost, and then something inside her, maybe instinct, maybe impulse, maybe just a desire to help, made her enter. Can I take a look? June said, pushing the door. Everyone turned. June? Adrian blinked, surprised. What are you? I heard the chaos from the floor below. She pointed at the tablet. Can I try? Marcus looked at Adrian. Adrian looked at the clock. 7 minutes. Please, he said, handing her the tablet as if handing over a premature baby. June took the device, turned it sideways, and narrowed her eyes. Hi, my friend, she said to the tablet. So you decided to go on strike today of all days? Marcus blinked. She is talking to the tablet? Shh, Adrian said, watching closely. June pressed 3 buttons at the same time, held for 5 seconds, and let go. Nothing. All right, she said, her voice steadier now. Listen here, you bad-tempered piece of glass. There are $20 million at stake. Do you want to be responsible for ruining that? Do you want to carry that weight on your electronic conscience? Tablets don't have a conscience, Marcus whispered. Shh, Adrian repeated, louder this time. June turned the tablet upside down. Last chance. Either you cooperate or I take you apart screw by screw and sell your parts online. And just so you know, I have a Phillips screwdriver at home. Don't test me. She pressed the power button again. The tablet lit up. The home screen appeared. The files loaded perfectly. Complete silence. How? Marcus began. Forced restart with memory cache release, June said, handing the tablet back to Adrian. It was trying to sync with a server that no longer exists. It just needed a little push. And creative threats. Adrian held the tablet, looking at her as if she had just performed magic. You saved the presentation. Technically, I threatened the tablet, June corrected. But yes. The door opened. Mr. Sullivan? An assistant said. The investors have arrived. Adrian took a deep breath, adjusted his tie, and looked at June. Stay. What? Stay here. During the presentation, in case the tablet decides to rebel again. I can't. Please, Adrian said, and there was something in his eyes that made June's heart skip a beat. All right, the presentation began flawlessly. Adrian was impressive, confident, clear, completely in control. June sat in the corner of the room trying to be invisible, while 5 Japanese investors in immaculate suits watched the charts and data about solar panels. Everything was perfect. Until slide 12. The tablet froze. Adrian pressed the button. Nothing. Pressed again. Nothing. The investors started whispering among themselves. Adrian looked at June. She stood quietly, walked over to him, and took the tablet from his hands. Excuse me, gentlemen, she said to the investors with a polite smile. Small technical adjustment. She turned the tablet over and tapped lightly on the side. Tap, 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 like knocking on a door. Hi, remember me? She whispered. The lady with the threats? So, work with me or you become a demonstration tool for a disassembly class. The tablet worked instantly. One of the investors let out a surprised laugh. Impressive, he said in English with a Japanese accent. June handed the device back to Adrian and returned to her corner. But she noticed that everyone was looking at her now. Especially Adrian, who had a small smile on the corner of his lips. On the other side of the glass in the observation room, Victor Hale watched everything with his arms crossed. He saw the interaction. He saw Adrian's smile. He saw how quickly June solved the problem. And, even worse, he saw how impressed the investors seemed with her. Victor pulled out his phone and typed a note. June Avery, growing problem, urgent action required. The presentation ended with complete success. The investors left satisfied, promising a signed contract by Friday. When the room emptied, Adrian turned to June. You just saved $20 million by talking to a tablet. Technically, I threatened it, June corrected. Twice. Adrian laughed. A real, relaxed laugh. How do you do that? Do what? Turn rebellious technology into obedient equipment. June shrugged. I treat devices like people. Sometimes they just need attention, or creative threats, depends on the mood. Adrian took 2 steps toward her, his hands in his pockets. June, I have a question. Yes? Would you be available tonight? June's heart stopped. Available? For what? Reviewing the sync systems, Adrian said a little too fast. To make sure this doesn't happen again, it would be work. Technical review. Completely professional. June tilted her head, trying to hide a smile. Completely professional. Exactly. 8, 7. Adrian corrected. Maybe we could order food. Pizza. Because it will be long. The review. Of course. The review. They stood there looking at each other, neither wanting to leave first. Then Marcus appeared at the door. Mr. Sullivan, there's a call from... I'll be right there, Adrian said, but didn't take his eyes off June. 7 o'clock. Server room? I'll be there. He walked out, but looked back twice before disappearing down the hallway. June stood still, holding the tablet that had caused all the chaos, a silly smile on her face. Thank you, she whispered to the device. You may have been troublesome, but you helped by accident. The tablet beeped once. June laughed. Then her phone vibrated. Message from an unknown number. Be careful who you impress. Some people do not like competition. She looked around the empty room. And for the first time, she seriously wondered, who was sending these messages? And why? At 7 in the evening, the server room was quieter than an empty library. June arrived 3 minutes late because she spent 20 minutes trying to decide if she should change her shirt, and found Adrian already there, surrounded by cables, an open laptop, and 2 pizza boxes that smelled like heaven. Work. It was only work. At least that was what she was trying to convince herself of. You brought pizza, June said, stopping at the door. Adrian looked up from the laptop and smiled, that small smile that made something strange happen in her stomach. I said it would be long. I thought I should bring fuel. 2 full boxes? I did not know which one you preferred, he admitted, adjusting his tie nervously. So I got pepperoni and margarita, and there's soda and water. And he pointed to a paper bag in the corner. French fries, in case you do not like pizza. June could not hold back the smile. You planned this. I prepared, Adrian corrected. It is different. Of course it is. She walked in, dropped her backpack, and took a slice of pepperoni. When she bit into it, she realized it was from an expensive pizzeria, not one of those $5 gas station slices. System review, she said, chewing. That is why we are here, right? Exactly. Adrian answered too quickly, turning back to the laptop. Completely professional. June sat beside him, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. So, where do we start? Adrian opened 3 code windows at once, but June noticed he looked at her twice before speaking. Sync system. It needs a full update. He pointed to the screen. This protocol is outdated. If we do not fix it, it will freeze again. June tilted her head, analyzing. Wait, this code is from 2019? Yes. Adrian, this is running on an architecture that does not even exist anymore. I know. How has this company not collapsed yet? Adrian laughed, a genuine, tired laugh. Good question. Sometimes I ask myself the same thing. They worked in silence for 15 minutes, fingers typing fast, adjusting code, testing systems. But then Adrian stopped, looked at her and said, Can I ask you a personal question? June paused, her hand still on the keyboard. That depends on the question. Why did you never go to college? He quickly added. I am not judging, just genuinely curious. You are clearly very talented. June took a deep breath. Money? She said simply. My mother worked 3 jobs. My father was not in the picture. I had 2 options, take a student loan that would take 30 years to pay, or work. I chose to work. Adrian was quiet for a moment. And you never regretted it? Every day, June admitted, her voice lower now. But regret does not pay bills. So I learned however I could. Internet, library, YouTube. She shrugged. And I found out I'm good at talking to machines, They do not care if you have a degree or not. Adrian looked at her in a way that made June feel he truly saw her. I went to university because it was expected, he said slowly. My father built this company from nothing. My mother always said I had to be better than him. So I got my master's degree, earned the awards, took over the company at 32. He hesitated, and sometimes I feel completely lost. June blinked. The perfect CEO who runs meetings without hesitation? I hesitate, Adrian said, smiling slightly. Just not in front of investors. In front of you, I stumble. Literally. Exactly. They laughed together, and for a moment, the weight of expectations and insecurities felt lighter. Half an hour later, June was on her knees on the floor reorganizing cables when she heard Adrian stand up. Napkins. I forgot napkins. She looked up. The pizza is in the box. You do not need. Too late. Adrian took 2 steps toward the counter where the boxes were. His right foot decided it was the perfect moment to forget how to walk, and he stumbled, grabbing the corner of the table to keep from falling. June let out a laugh. You are nervous again? No. Adrian lied, his face turning red. There was an uneven spot on the smooth tile, barely noticeable. June stood up, still laughing, and walked toward him. You know, she said, picking a napkin from the stack, you do not need to be nervous around me. I don't get nervous. You tripped 3 times today. Coincidence. Adrian, he looked at her, really looked, and June saw something in his eyes that made her heart race. Fine, he admitted softly. I get nervous. Around you, because you are, he paused, searching for the words. You are real. Everyone here wears masks, but you don't. You talk to servers as if they were people. You threaten tablets and you fix impossible things. And He stepped closer. June stopped breathing. I can't stop thinking about you, Adrian said, his voice rough now. The space between them was almost nothing. June could feel his warmth, see the way he was looking at her lips. Adrian raised his hand, his fingers almost touching her face. June! The server alert exploded in the silence, loud and sharp. They both jumped back as if shocked. Sorry, June said too quickly, running to the computer. It's just the automatic backup. I forgot to adjust the volume. She typed fast, turning off the sound, her heart beating so loudly she was sure he could hear it. When she turned around, Adrian was still standing exactly where she had left him, hands in his pockets, hair messy, looking just as lost as she felt. We should, he began. Keep working, June finished quickly. Yes, work, that's why we're here. Exactly. But neither of them moved. Adrian's phone rang, breaking the moment. He looked at the screen inside. Emergency meeting. Bored. Now? Now? It's 9 at night. Welcome to the corporate world. He grabbed his jacket. June, Go, she said, trying to smile. I'll finish here. Adrian hesitated at the door, looking at her as if he wanted to say 1,000 things but didn't know where to start. Thank you. For today. For everything. And he left. June stayed alone in the server room, surrounded by cold pizza and unfinished code, touching her own lips and wondering what on earth had just happened. She worked for another 40 minutes, finishing updates, testing systems, talking softly to Kevin about how her life had turned upside down in a week. When she finally shut everything down and grabbed her backpack, it was already past 10 at night. The building was empty. Silent. Only the emergency lights lit the halls. June walked to the elevator, pressed the button, and waited. Across the street, in the parking lot, Victor Hale was watching. He had come back to the office to pick up forgotten documents when he noticed the lights still on in the 23rd floor server room. Curious, he waited. At 9:15, he saw Adrian leaving in a hurry, jacket on, jumping into his car and driving away. Emergency meeting, probably, but the server room lights stayed on. And then, at 10:08, June walked out of the building, alone, backpack on her shoulders, hair messy, smiling at her phone. Victor narrowed his eyes. Why was she there so late? What were they doing before Adrian left? He pulled out his phone and opened the internal security camera. His privileged access as chief operations officer had its advantages. He scrolled through the footage of the server room. He saw Adrian arriving at 7 with pizza. He saw June arriving 3 minutes later. He saw the two of them working, but also laughing, talking, sitting very close. And then he saw the moment when Adrian almost touched her face. Victor shut the video off, his jaw tight. He typed a quick message. Not to June this time. To someone else. It's time. Start Plan B. Target, June Avery. The reply came seconds later. Confirmed. We begin tomorrow. Victor put his phone away and smiled, the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. June Avery was a problem, but problems could be removed. The next morning, Soltech's solar energy system began to glitch. Nothing catastrophic. Just strange. Panels disconnecting at random. Efficiency readings dropping by 3% for no reason. Inverters restarting themselves at 3:47 a.m. A time far too specific to be coincidence. And every failure pointed to one thing. Recent configurations. Made by June Avery. I didn't touch this, June said for the fourth time, staring at the logs on the screen. Marcus stood beside her, arms crossed, expression doubtful. The system says you accessed these settings yesterday at 10:03 p.m. I was in the server room yesterday, working on tablet synchronization, not solar panels. Then why does your login appear here? June opened her mouth, closed it. She had no answer. Riley appeared at the door, holding a tablet. Another failure, panel 47 nav-B, just disconnected. She looked at June with something close to pity. Sorry, but the system is saying that. That it was me, June finished, her voice tense. I know. Marcus sighed, rubbing his forehead. Look, I'm not accusing you on purpose, but we need to figure out what's happening before it becomes something bigger. If upper management finds out about this. The door opened again. Adrian walked in, his tie slightly crooked, hair messy as if he had run his hands through it 100 times. I heard about the failures. What's the situation? Small issues in the solar system, Marcus explained, choosing his words carefully. Nothing serious yet, but the logs point to changes made by. He hesitated, looking at June. By me, June said, looking directly at Adrian. But I didn't do anything. I swear. Adrian didn't hesitate for even a second. I believe you. Marcus blinked, surprised. Mr. Sullivan, with all due respect, the logs are very clear. Logs can be manipulated, Adrian interrupted, his voice firm. June, you and I will investigate this together, now. 15 minutes later, they were in the basement where the solar inverters were located, a hot, noisy room filled with humming equipment. Why did you defend me so fast? June said, crouched next to a control panel. I trust you, Adrian answered, adjusting his tie nervously. And besides, you wouldn't do something so obvious. If you were going to sabotage, you would do it properly. June looked at him. That was a strange compliment. It was a compliment based on technical observation. You basically said I would be good at crimes. Technical crimes, Adrian corrected. There is a difference. June laughed, and the tension in her shoulders eased a little. Then the backup unit in the corner beeped, beep, 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 3 times, sharp and annoying. This one again, June murmured. Every time I come in here, it does this. Maybe it doesn't like you. Impossible. Machines love me. She stood up and walked to the equipment. Hello, Mr. Dramatic. What is your problem this time? The backup unit beeped twice. It's responding, Adrian said, trying not to laugh. Of course it is. We have a complicated relationship. June opened the side panel. Wait, this shouldn't be loose. Adrian stepped closer. What did you find? Ground cable. It's disconnected. She frowned. This causes wrong readings in the entire system. Makes it look like there are failures when there aren't. Someone disconnected it on purpose? Or it was a very convenient accident. June reconnected the cable, tightened it, and the backup unit stopped beeping. There. Problem solved. You can stop complaining now. Silence. He ignored me, June said, offended. That is disrespectful. Adrian let out a laugh, genuine and relaxed. You take this very seriously. Relationship with technology is serious, Adrian. You don't understand because you don't talk to your machines. Should I start? It helps. They become more cooperative. Adrian looked at the backup unit. Hello, equipment. Thank you for existing? The backup unit beeped once. June widened her eyes. It responded. Coincidence. It likes you. Equipment doesn't have preferences. This one does. June crossed her arms, pretending to be offended. Great, even backup units prefer the Billionaire CEO. Adrian laughed so hard he had to lean against the wall. And for a moment, in the middle of that hot, noisy room, surrounded by problematic technology, they forgot everything that was wrong. 2 hours and 7 tests later, they found 3 more disconnected cables, 2 settings changed manually, and a fake access log using June's login. Someone did this on purpose, June said, noting everything on the tablet. And they used my login to make it look like it was me. Adrian looked at the logs, his jaw tight. Who has access to these settings? IT team, operations management, executive board. June counted on her fingers. That's a lot of people. Adrian stayed silent, his expression tense, clearly thinking about something he didn't want to say out loud. A lot of people, he said finally, choosing his words carefully. Some who may not like sudden changes. Changes like hiring a former cleaning lady? June asked, her voice lower. He looked at her. Changes like recognizing talent where others only see a job title. June felt something tighten in her chest. No one ever took me seriously before you, she admitted. My whole life I was the cleaning lady, the one who mops, invisible. And now? She lifted her shoulders, her voice trembling slightly. Now I have someone who trusts me. Someone who believes me when I say I didn't do something. And I don't even know how to thank you for that. Adrian took 2 steps toward her, the distance between them shrinking. June, you do not need to thank me for. The basement door opened with a metallic creak. Both turned. Victor Hale walked in, his suit perfect even in the suffocating heat of the room, his polite smile perfectly placed. Adrian, June. He sounded genuinely surprised. I did not expect to find you here. I heard about the problems in the solar system and came to check personally. We are already solving it, Adrian said, his voice colder than usual. Great, great. Victor walked to the panel June had just fixed. And did you find the cause? Disconnected cables, June answered, watching him closely, and settings changed manually. Ah, Victor made a thoughtful expression. Human error, then? Or sabotage, Adrian said. Victor laughed, a light, almost paternal laugh. Sabotage? Adrian, you have been watching too many corporate thrillers. He looked at June. Sometimes new people in the system make mistakes without realizing it. It is no one's fault. It happens. June felt her nails press into her palms. I did not make any mistake. Of course, of course. Victor raised his hands in a peace gesture. I did not mean anything by it. I am only saying the system is complex. It takes time to master it. He smiled. But I am sure you will learn. There was something in his tone, condescending, dishonest, that made June's stomach turn. If you need help with the investigation, Victor continued, already walking toward the door, just call me. After all, the company's safety is everyone's priority, right? And he left, leaving a heavy silence behind. June looked at Adrian. Was it just me or? It was not just you, Adrian said, his jaw tight. He knows something. Her phone rang, emergency meeting again. He closed his eyes, clearly frustrated. I have to go. But tonight we finish this? Together, all right? June nodded. All right. Adrian hesitated at the door, as if he wanted to say something else, but only nodded and left. June stayed alone with the backup unit, which beeped softly, almost in sympathy. You are confused too, right? She asked the equipment. Welcome to the club. Her phone vibrated. Message from an unknown number. Be careful with those who offer help. Not everyone wants you to solve this mystery. June looked around the empty room, her heart racing. For the first time, the message did not feel like it came from an enemy. It felt like someone was trying to protect her. But who? The meeting was scheduled for 2 in the afternoon with the vague subject of critical systems review, but everyone knew what it really meant. Someone was going to take the blame for the failures in the solar panels. And June had a terrible feeling that this someone would be her. When she entered the conference room on the 22nd floor, 7 pairs of eyes turned to her at the same time. Adrian sat at the head of the table, his tie perfectly adjusted, but with the tired look of someone who had slept poorly. Victor occupied the chair to his right, smiling politely. Marcus, Riley, and 3 managers, June barely knew, completed the circle. It looked more like a courtroom than a team meeting. June, thank you for coming, Adrian said, pointing to the empty chair beside him. Please, sit. She sat, placing the tablet on the table harder than she meant to. The sound echoed in the uncomfortable silence. So, Victor began, opening a folder with perfectly organized papers. Let us go straight to the point. In the last 48 hours, we had 17 failures in the solar energy system, all traced to modifications made by a single login. He paused, looking at June with that paternal expression she was starting to hate. Yours. I did not make those modifications, June said immediately. The logs say otherwise, one of the managers commented, flipping through documents. Logs can be altered, Adrian interrupted, his voice firm. Victor tilted his head, still smiling. Adrian, I understand your loyalty to Miss Avery. It is admirable, really, but we need to be objective here. He turned to June. You were in the building last night alone with full access to the systems, correct? June felt her stomach tighten. I was working, with authorization, reviewing tablet synchronization. And you are sure, Victor continued, the tone casual but the eyes sharp, that you did not touch anything you should not have? Sometimes when we are learning, we click in the wrong places without noticing. There it was again, that condescending tone, treating her like an incompetent child. I know exactly where I clicked, June answered, keeping her voice calm despite the anger boiling inside. And it was not on solar panel settings. But you do have access to them, another manager pointed out. Half the company has access to them, June replied. But half the company wasn't alone in the building at night, Victor said softly, letting the words hang in the air like poisonous smoke. The silence that followed was so heavy, June could feel it resting on her shoulders. Then Adrian stood. Enough. Everyone looked at him. June didn't cause these failures. She found manually disconnected cables, settings altered under her password at times when she can prove she was somewhere else, and clear signs of unauthorized access. He looked around the table, his voice firm and authoritative. Someone is sabotaging our systems and trying to blame her. Victor raised his eyebrows. That's a serious accusation, Adrian, and the evidence is serious, Adrian replied. June and I will investigate this completely. Until then, no one questions her integrity without going through me first. Understood? No one answered, but the message was clear. Victor closed the folder slowly, the smile still on his face but something cold in his eyes. As you wish. I hope you're right about this. The meeting ended in awkward silence. When everyone left, June remained standing beside her chair, her legs shaking slightly from the adrenaline. Adrian came closer. Are you okay? You just risked your reputation for me, June said quietly. In front of the entire management team. I defended the truth. You trust me that much? Adrian looked straight into her eyes. It's not blind trust. I know you're innocent. I know because I know you. Because I see how you work, how you care. He took one step closer. And because anyone who talks to servers and calls them Kevin doesn't have the kind of intention it takes to sabotage a company. June let out a small, genuine laugh. That's your CEO logic? It's my logic as someone who... He hesitated, trying to choose his words, as someone who cares about you. June's heart skipped a beat, but before she could answer, Adrian's phone rang. Emergency meeting alarm. He looked at the screen and closed his eyes, clearly frustrated. Board meeting. Again. Go, June said, trying to hide the disappointment. I'll start checking the logs. I'll be back as soon as I can, I promise. The server room at 8 in the evening felt like a sanctuary. Quiet, cold, only the constant hum of equipment filling the space. June had settled on the floor, because chairs were overrated, surrounded by neatly organized cables, her laptop open, notes spread around her like puzzle pieces she was trying to fit together. 3 hours. Adrian had been in that meeting for 3 hours. She had already traced 7 unauthorized access attempts, all using her credentials, but from different IPs. She was beginning to see a pattern when she heard the door open. Adrian walked in looking like a corporate shipwreck. Tie completely crooked, hair messy from running his hands through it, eyes red. He carried 2 cups of coffee that were probably already cold and an expression of complete exhaustion. You're still here, he said, his voice a mix of surprise and what sounded like admiration. I said I was going to investigate. June tapped the spot beside her. Sit. I need to show you what I found. Adrian practically collapsed next to her, his back against the wall as he let out a long breath. Bad meeting? 3 hours discussing quarterly budgets that could have been handled in a 15-minute email. He rubbed his face with both hands. I hate corporate politics, but you're good at it. Doesn't mean I enjoy it. June turned the laptop toward him, pointing at the screen full of data. Look at this. I found where the changes started. Specific IP, consistent access pattern, always around the same times. Mostly 3 in the morning. She switched to another tab, and there's more. This IP doesn't belong to any computer in the IT team. It's from an executive terminal. Adrian leaned in, frowning. Executive terminal. That means someone with high-level access. Upper management. June counted on her fingers. Marcus doesn't have those credentials. Riley doesn't either. That leaves 5 people in the company with this level of access. 6, if you count me. June turned to him, one eyebrow raised. Are you putting yourself on the suspect list? Just being technical. Considering you defended me publicly today and risked your reputation for me. June smiled. Yes, I think you're safely off the list. Adrian smiled back, but it was a tired, heavy smile. June, I need to thank you. For what? For not giving up. For continuing to investigate even when everyone is pointing fingers at you. 4. He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. For reminding me why I started all of this. Technology, innovation, making a real difference. Sometimes I get lost in endless meetings and forget the real purpose of everything. June watched him. The way he rubbed his eyes, the way his shoulders fell from exhaustion. the way he had still come looking for her even though he was worn out. When was the last time you slept well? Adrian thought for a moment. Tuesday? Or was it Monday? The days are a little mixed up. Adrian, it's 8:30 on Thursday night. You need to rest. I know. He leaned his head back against the wall, closing his eyes. Just 5 minutes. Then I'll review the rest of the data with you. Of course. 5 minutes. June went back to the laptop, compiling more evidence, organizing timestamps, creating a clear timeline for each act of sabotage. She could hear Adrian's breathing beside her, slower and deeper. 10 minutes passed, then she felt a soft weight fall onto her shoulder. Adrian had fallen asleep, his head resting against her, completely taken by exhaustion. And then, very quietly, he started snoring. June looked at Kevin, the server humming beside them. Kevin, she whispered, are you seeing this? The CEO of the company is snoring on my shoulder. Kevin gave a small beep, almost as if he were laughing. June did not move. She kept typing with one hand, the laptop at an odd angle, protecting his sleep as if it were something precious and fragile. Another half-hour passed like that, finding more patterns, tracking more access points, building a stronger and stronger case. Then her own body began to ask for a break. Her eyes felt heavy. The laptop slipped slightly in her lap. She blinked slowly, trying to focus on the screen that was starting to blur. I'm just going to close my eyes for 1 second, she thought, and the world went dark. Adrian woke up at 5:43 in the morning with a stiff neck, his whole body complaining from sleeping on the floor and something warm and soft touching him. It took a few seconds for him to understand where he was. Server room. Cold floor. Kevin humming faithfully nearby, pale morning light coming through the small window. And June Avery sleeping deeply beside him, her head now leaning on his shoulder, hair falling across her face. Her laptop still balanced loosely on her lap. Adrian stayed completely still, afraid of waking her. She had worked until she literally collapsed from exhaustion, investigating, fighting to clear her name, protecting the company, protecting him, even when everyone was accusing her. The soft morning light highlighted her face in an almost unreal way. Adrian noticed details he had never taken the time to see. The small scar on her left eyebrow, the almost invisible freckles across her nose, the way she slightly furrowed her brow even while sleeping, as if she were solving problems even in her dreams. She was extraordinary, and he was completely, hopelessly in love with her. The realization hit him with the force of a runaway train. Adrian Sullivan, you are a fool. You fell in love with a former cleaning worker who talks to servers and threatens tablets. He tried to reach for the laptop slipping from her lap, moving slowly and carefully, but the motion was enough. June opened her eyes slowly, blinking against the faint light, confused and disoriented. Adrian? She looked around, processing everything. Did we sleep here? It seemed so. She sat up quickly, rubbing her face, her hair sticking out in 3 different directions. What time is it? Almost 6 in the morning. 6. June looked at the laptop, at the scattered notes, then at him. We spent the entire night on the floor? You worked until you collapsed, literally. I didn't collapse, I just closed my eyes for a second. For 6 hours. June laughed, and the sound was so genuine, so free, that Adrian felt something tighten in his chest. We are terrible with normal schedules. Completely terrible. And you snore, June added, smiling. Loudly. Adrian felt his face warm. I do not snore. Yes, you do. Kevin witnessed it. He even laughed at you. Kevin does not have a sense of humor. Yes, he does. You just do not know how to talk to him properly. They laughed together, and for a moment, in the middle of that cold room surrounded by humming technology, the world made sense. June looked at him, and something changed in her expression. It became softer, more vulnerable. Thank you, she said quietly, for trusting me, for defending me today, for everything. You do not need to thank me. Yes, I do. No one has ever done that for me before. Adrian leaned slightly forward, closing the distance between them. His heart was beating so loudly he was sure she could hear it. June, I need to tell you something. She held his gaze, her brown eyes reflecting the faint early morning light. Say it. He tried to find the right words. How could he explain the chaos he felt every time she walked into a room? The way the whole world disappeared when she smiled? How she had become the most important part of his life in less than 2 weeks? The words didn't come. So he stopped trying to explain, and he kissed her. It was soft at first, hesitant, almost shy, as if he were asking a silent question. His lips touched hers carefully, waiting, testing. June froze for half a second. surprised, processing, unable to believe it. And then she melted completely. She kissed him back, her hand rising instinctively to his face, her fingers touching his slight stubble, feeling the roughness against her skin, pulling him closer, because the space between them suddenly felt unbearable. The kiss deepened. Adrian slid his hand to the back of her neck, his fingers weaving into her messy hair, and June felt the whole world disappear. No server room, no humming Kevin, no sabotage or accusations. Just the two of them, finally honest about what they felt. When they pulled apart, breathing fast, they stayed with their foreheads touching, eyes closed, trying to process the intensity of what had just happened. Adrian began, his voice rough. "If you say it was a mistake," June interrupted, still with her eyes closed, "I promise I'll argue with you." He laughed softly, his warm breath brushing her face. "I was going to say I've wanted to do that for days." June opened her eyes, finding his just inches away. "Really? Since that first night? When you saved $420 million by talking to Kevin like he was a stubborn child. I thought you just thought I was strange." "I do." Adrian smiled, brushing her cheek with his thumb. "But it's the kind of strange I can't stop thinking about." June laughed, then kissed him again. More confident this time, more certain, without hesitation. They stayed like that for minutes that felt like hours and hours that felt like seconds, sharing slow kisses, holding on to that stolen moment in the middle of chaos, forgetting for a little while that there was a saboteur, public accusations, and an entire world waiting outside. Until Adrian's phone alarm went off. 7 in the morning. 3 hours until the most important presentation of the quarter. Adrian turned off the alarm, but didn't step back right away, still holding her face with both hands. "We have to go." "I know, but I don't want to." June smiled. "I don't want to either." She kissed him one last time, quick and sweet. "But you have German investors arriving at 10, and I urgently need a shower because apparently sleeping on the server room floor has become my new hobby." Adrian laughed, stood up, and offered her his hand. When she rose to her feet, he didn't let go right away. "June, what happened here was real," she finished, intertwining their fingers. "And I don't regret it at all." "Neither do I." They left the room together, still holding hands, not knowing that in a few hours everything would fall apart, and that this kiss would be the last good thing before the storm. June took the fastest shower of her life, changed clothes at record speed, and arrived at Soltech at 9:45, with her heart still racing for reasons that had nothing to do with the rush. She had kissed Adrian Sullivan. Or rather, Adrian Sullivan had kissed her. And the whole world felt different now, brighter, lighter, as if someone had turned up the contrast of reality. When she entered the executive conference room, Adrian was already there, connecting cables, testing systems. He looked at her and smiled, not that polite corporate smile, but something small, private, just for them. June felt butterflies explode in her stomach. "Everything ready?" she asked, trying to sound professional. "Technically, yes." Adrian straightened his tie nervously. Emotionally, still processing the events of early morning. June laughed softly, feeling her face warm. "Focus on the presentation. We process later." "Promise?" "Promise." The door opened and 5 German investors walked in, their dark suits immaculate, their expressions serious, carrying the energy of people about to decide whether to invest millions in a company. Victor came in right behind them, smiling politely, followed by Marcus and 2 managers. June settled in the corner of the room, trying to be invisible, but she felt Victor's eyes meet hers for a second. Something cold passed through that look, and June knew, with absolute certainty, that something very bad was about to happen. The presentation began perfectly. Adrian was brilliant, confident, articulate, explaining the technology of smart solar panels with a clarity that made everything seem simple and revolutionary at the same time. The investors took notes, nodded in approval, and murmured to each other in German. Slide 1, perfect. Slide 2, flawless. Slide 3, charts showing growth projections. Slide 4, energy efficiency data. And then, on slide 5, the system froze. Adrian pressed the remote. Nothing happened. He pressed it again. The screen flickered twice and went completely dark. One of the investors frowned. "A small technical issue," Adrian said, keeping his voice calm. "One moment, please." He typed several quick commands on the laptop. The screen returned, showing his desktop. Not the presentation, just the home screen with scattered icons. Adrian clicked on the presentation file. The system froze again. The investors began whispering. June stood up instinctively, But before she could take 2 steps, Victor stood up as well. "Mr. Sullivan, allow me to help," he said, already walking toward the laptop. "There's no need, I can—" Too late. Victor was already beside the computer, typing something. The screen returned, but instead of the presentation, it displayed a red error window. "Access denied. Credentials compromised. Unauthorized modifications detected." The silence in the room was overwhelming. "What?" Adrian began, confused. Victor clicked on another window. System logs appeared on the giant screen for everyone to see. And there it was, June's login. Dozens of access attempts, changes in critical files, timestamps from the previous night. "Interesting," Victor said, his tone casual but sharply effective. "It seems someone was very busy last night." All eyes turned to June. She felt her blood turn cold. "I didn't do this." "Logs do not lie, Miss Avery." Victor enlarged the screen, showing more details. 23 unauthorized access attempts, changes to the presentation files, backup deletions, all traced to your credentials. "Someone used my credentials," June said, her voice louder than she intended. "I didn't make any of those changes." One of the investors closed his laptop. "Mr. Sullivan, perhaps we should reschedule once your company resolves its internal security problems." "No, please," Adrian said too quickly, his composure beginning to crack. "This is just a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" Victor turned to the investors with the expression of someone being forced to reveal uncomfortable truths. "Gentlemen, I believe it is fair to inform you that this employee," he pointed at June, "is new to the company. Very new. She was hired less than 2 weeks ago. No formal qualifications, no verifiable background, and since then, we have had a series of unexplained technical failures." "That is not true." June felt her nails digging into her palms. "And now," Victor continued, ignoring her completely, "during the most important presentation of the quarter, everything collapses. Corrupted files, compromised systems." He paused dramatically. "Gentlemen, I believe we are facing a clear case of internal sabotage." The word hit the room like a bomb. Marcus looked at June with something between pity and suspicion. The investors whispered furiously in German. And Adrian stood there looking at the screen, at June, at Victor, clearly trying to process what was happening. "Adrian," June said, her voice trembling, "you know I didn't do this." He looked at her, opened his mouth to answer, but one of the managers interrupted. "Mr. Sullivan, with all due respect, the evidence is very clear. Maybe it is better to call security and—" "No," Adrian said firmly, "June would not do this." Relief rushed through her chest, but then Victor played his final card. "Adrian, I understand your closeness to Miss Avery." His tone was calculated, insinuating. "But as CEO, you have a fiduciary responsibility to this company, to these investors. Are you really willing to risk everything for someone you have known for less than 2 weeks?" And there it was. The question that placed Adrian between personal loyalty and corporate responsibility. June saw the exact moment the doubt entered his eyes. It wasn't doubt about her. It was doubt about whether he could defend her publicly without destroying everything. The seconds dragged on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Adrian said nothing, and those 5 seconds of silence told June everything she needed to know. She was not a priority, not when millions were at stake, not when his corporate reputation was on the line. She was disposable. "All right," June said, her voice coming out strangely calm. "I understand." "June, wait." But she was already grabbing her backpack, already walking toward the door with trembling legs, fighting against the tears that threatened to fall. "Miss Avery," Victor called. "Security will want to talk to you." June stopped at the door, turned, and looked directly at Victor. And in that moment, she saw the clear truth in his eyes: satisfaction. Victory. He had planned everything. "You can send security," she said, her voice cold. "I have nothing to hide." And she left. The hallway was empty and cold. June walked fast, then faster, and soon she was running to the elevator, pressing the button over and over, stepping inside the second the doors opened. Only when the doors closed, alone in that metal box, did the tears finally fall. She had trusted. For the first time in her life, she had let someone in. She had believed she was seen, valued, protected. And those 5 seconds of silence had destroyed everything. Her phone vibrated. Message from an unknown number. "I warned you to stop. Now look at the price you paid. Leave while you still can." June looked at the screen, blurred by tears. Whoever had been sending those messages had been right from the beginning. She should have stopped. She should have given up. She should never have trusted. In the conference room, Adrian stood frozen, staring at the door where June had disappeared. "Well?" one of the investors said, closing his folder. I think we should reschedule. They left with polite but final silence. When the room emptied, Adrian collapsed into the chair, placing his head in his hands. 5 seconds. You hesitated for 5 seconds and lost her. You did the right thing, Victor said, placing a hand on his shoulder. Hard decisions are part of leading. Adrian looked at him, and for the first time he truly saw Victor. The smile that never reached the eyes, the poorly disguised satisfaction, the calculated way he had orchestrated everything. Get out, Adrian said quietly. Adrian, get out! The voice echoed in the empty room. Victor left, but the smile was still there. Adrian stayed alone, surrounded by broken technology and the bitter taste of having betrayed the only person who truly mattered. He pulled out his phone and called June. Straight to voicemail. He called again. Nothing. He stood up, tripped over his own leg, the nervousness returning hard, and ran to the elevator. But when he reached the lobby, she was already gone. And Adrian Sullivan, CEO of a billion-dollar company, stood in the empty lobby, realizing he had just lost the one thing that had no price. Adrian Sullivan did not sleep. He did not even try. At 3 a.m. on Friday, he was still in the office, surrounded by 3 open laptops, 2 cups of cold coffee, and one singular obsession, proving that June Avery was innocent, because she was. He knew it with every fiber of his being. And those cursed 5 seconds of hesitation had cost everything, her trust, her respect, perhaps even her love. But hesitation was over. Now it was time to act. And Adrian Sullivan had not reached his position without knowing how to fight. At 3:30 a.m, he called Marcus Chen. Hello? Marcus's voice sounded sleepy and confused. Mr. Sullivan, it is 3:30. Marcus, I need you at the office. Now. Now? But this is not a request, Adrian said, his voice firm, authoritative. It is about June, and about who really sabotaged our systems. You owe me this. Silence on the other end. I will be there in 20 minutes. Marcus arrived at 4 a.m, hair messy, sweatshirt over pajamas, but carrying his laptop. He walked into Adrian's office and stopped when he saw the scene. 3 monitors full of code, logs spread out, timestamp charts, sticky notes covering every available surface. What is all this? The truth, Adrian said without looking away from the screen. Sit, I need your technical expertise. Marcus sat, pulling the nearest laptop toward him. He really believed June is innocent. It was not a question. I know she is, and I will prove it. Adrian turned one of the screens toward Marcus. Look at this timestamp. Access recorded under her login, 10:17 p.m. Thursday. But she left the building at 10:08. I checked the security cameras. Marcus frowned, leaning in to look closer. That does not make sense, unless someone used her credentials, Adrian finished. Look at the source IP, room 3804. Marcus typed quickly, checking the records. Executive terminal. He looked at Adrian. 5 people have access to that room. One of them is Victor Hale. Marcus stayed silent for a long moment. You are accusing the chief operating officer of sabotaging his own company? I'm accusing Victor of fabricating evidence against June to destroy her. Adrian opened another window. And I have more proof. A lot more. Over the next 2 hours, Adrian and Marcus dug deep. They found files modified with 2 users in the metadata. First June, legitimately, and then someone else using her credentials, but from a different IP. They discovered manually altered timestamps, something that required high-level administrative access. They tracked unauthorized permission changes, giving June's login access to systems she was never supposed to touch. And every single trail led back to Victor's terminal. Man, Marcus said, leaning back in his chair, stunned. This is corporate-level sabotage. He planned everything down to the smallest detail. Every last detail. Adrian agreed, his jaw tight. But why? What does Victor gain by destroying June? Marcus frowned. That's what makes no sense. Why would he bother? June is new. She has no power. She's no threat to him. Adrian froze, staring at the screen. Marcus was right. Victor wouldn't do this without a reason. He was too calculating, too political. There had to be something more. Unless... Adrian opened another window. Unless June saw something she wasn't supposed to. Like what? I don't know, but she had full access to the servers from her first night here, when she fixed Kevin. Adrian started typing quickly. Marcus, pull the main server access logs. Everything June viewed or modified since she was hired. Marcus typed for 5 minutes, eyes scanning line after line of code. Here, on the first night, when she fixed Kevin's overheating issue, she restarted the system. Standard protocol. That generated an automatic log of every process running at the time. And Marcus clicked on another file, his eyes widening. And that log captured something that shouldn't have been there. He turned the screen toward Adrian. It was a financial transfer file, hidden, running in the background, disguised as a system process. Adrian leaned in, reading the data with growing horror. Monthly transfers, amounts small enough not to trigger automatic alerts. Offshore accounts, fake names. Total accumulated over the last 2 years, $4.7 million. And every transfer came from a single executive authorization, Victor Hale. My God, Marcus whispered. He's been siphoning company funds for years. Adrian felt his stomach twist, and June saw it. That first night. When she restarted Kevin, the log was generated and she had access to it. He looked at Marcus. She probably didn't even understand what it was. She must have thought it was just a system error, some temporary file. But Victor knew. Marcus said, the realization forming. He saw that someone accessed that log, and when he found out it was June, he panicked. He couldn't fire her without drawing suspicion. Adrian continued, piecing it all together. So he needed to destroy her credibility first, make it look like she was the one sabotaging the company. If she tried to report anything, no one would believe her. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, stunned. This is corporate fraud. A federal crime. Victor is going to prison. He is, Adrian said, his voice like steel. But first, I need to make sure June is safe and clear her name completely. He started copying every file, the sabotage evidence, the fraudulent financial logs, everything. Marcus, I need you to document all of this officially. Full technical report. Every piece of evidence recorded, time-stamped, and signed by you as head of IT. I'm on it. Adrian stood, straightening the tie that had been crooked since yesterday. Finish it and send it to me in an hour. I need to find June first. Marcus held out his hand. Go. Bring her back. Adrian shook his hand firmly. I will. At 6 a.m, Adrian called June. Straight to voicemail. He tried again. Voicemail. He sent a message. June, I found everything. Victor was diverting millions. You saw the logs that first night without knowing. He tried to destroy you to protect his scheme. I have all the proof. You were right all along. Please let me show you. Message delivered. Read. No answer. Adrian arrived at June's apartment at 6:20. He knocked on the door of 3B. Nothing. Knocked again, harder. June? Please. I found everything. Open the door. The door next to it opened. An elderly woman in a robe appeared. Son, the girl left last night with 2 suitcases. Called a car and went off. The world shook. Did she say where she was going? To the airport. I heard her talking on the phone with her mother. Something about going back to Portland. Portland, Oregon. A 2-hour flight. What time was this? Not around 10 last night. Adrian looked at his watch. 6:25 in the morning. If she took an overnight flight, she was already there. If she took a morning flight. He ran back to the car, tripping on the sidewalk but recovering. Inside the car, he called Riley. I need June's emergency contact, her mother's number, now. 2 minutes later, he was dialing. Hello? A woman's voice, older, tired. Mrs. Avery, my name is Adrian Sullivan. I work with your daughter June. Is she there with you? Pause. Who wants to know? The fool who did not defend her when he should have. But now I have proof she was always innocent. And I need to speak with her. Please. Long silence. She is coming today, flight at 9:15. It lands at 11:30 in Portland. Adrian looked at his watch again. 6:30. Thank you very much. He hung up and drove toward the San Diego airport. If he could get there before boarding, if he could find her, if she would listen. Maybe there was still a chance. The San Diego International Airport at 7:15 in the morning was an organized chaos of hurried people, rolling suitcases, unclear announcements, and the unmistakable smell of bad coffee mixed with desperation. Adrian was adding generously to the desperation part. He crossed the main hall, almost running, still in the wrinkled suit from yesterday, hair that looked like a bird's nest, carrying a tablet filled with evidence and a heartbeat so loud he was sure it was audible within 3 meters. Flight to Portland. Date B-17. Boarding at 8:45. He had an hour and a half. Please, June, please still be here. Security looked at him as if he were about to cause an international incident, but Adrian managed to get through the scanners without setting off any alarms, which, considering his luck lately, was already a small victory. He ran through the corridors, tripped over absolutely nothing in the middle of Corridor C, recovered with questionable grace, and kept going. Gate B-17 appeared ahead like a desperate beacon of hope. And there, Sitting alone by the window, backpack on her lap, headphones in her ears, staring at nothing with the expression of someone who had given up on everything, was June Avery. Adrian stopped 3 meters from her, breathing hard, trying to find the right words. There are no right words, only honest ones. He walked closer. June, she did not turn. June, please. This time she removed one earbud, turned her head, and when she saw who it was, her expression moved from surprise to anger to something like complete exhaustion. What are you doing here? Begging you not to get on that plane. Adrian, I found everything, he said quickly before she could shut him out. Victor was moving money out of the company, millions, for 2 years, and you saw the evidence without knowing it that first night when you fixed Kevin. June blinked, processing. What? Adrian sat next to her. He did not ask, he simply sat, and opened the tablet, showing the files he and Marcus had put together. Look, monthly transfers, offshore accounts, a total of $4.7 million moved, all authorized from Victor's terminal. He switched to another screen. When you restarted Kevin that first night, the system created an automatic log, and that log captured the file Victor was running in the background. You accessed it without knowing. June looked at the data, her eyes scanning numbers, timestamps, code. I remember that. There was a strange file in the logs. I thought it was just temporary system junk. But Victor saw someone had accessed it, and when he found out it was you, he panicked. Adrian moved to more evidence. He could not fire you without raising suspicion, so he decided to destroy your credibility first. He made it look like you were the one sabotaging the system. If you tried to report anything, no one would believe you. June stayed silent, looking at the screen, processing the magnitude of what had been done to her. He planned everything. Every last detail. Adrian turned the tablet, showing the forged logs. He used your credentials, changed timestamps, planted evidence, all to destroy you before you connected the dots. June looked at Adrian, her eyes filling with tears. And you believed him. In the meeting. When it mattered most, you hesitated. And there it was. The truth that cut deeper than any accusation. Adrian took a deep breath. I know, and those 5 seconds of hesitation are going to haunt me for the rest of my life. He held her hand, and June didn't pull away. But I didn't hesitate because I doubted you. I hesitated because I was scared of losing everything. The company, the reputation, the investors. And in those 5 awful seconds, I chose wrong. I chose to protect things that don't matter and abandoned the one person who does. A tear slid down June's face. You left me there, alone, humiliated. I know, and I'll never forgive myself for that. Adrian tightened his hold on her hand. But I'm here now, with proof, with the truth. And I'm going to the board today to expose Victor. I'm going to clear your name. I'm going to do everything right this time. He paused. But I need you there with me, because you deserve to see him fall. You deserve justice. June looked at the boarding gate, then at the tablet, then at Adrian. If I go back and this doesn't work, it will work. Marcus documented everything. We have undeniable evidence. Victor is going to prison. Adrian leaned closer. And you will be officially recognized for what you always were, the brightest person in that company. June wiped her tears with the back of her hand. You really drove all the way here in a wrinkled suit at 7 in the morning to stop me from leaving? I did. I tripped in 3 different places in the airport, and I'm probably on a security watch list now. Adrian gave a small smile. But yes, June laughed, a small, tear-soaked but real laugh. You're ridiculous, completely. And I'm still very angry at you. You have every right. June stayed silent for a few more seconds. Then she took a deep breath. All right, I'll go back. She looked at him. But it's not for you. It's for me, because I deserve to see that man pay for what he did. You do, Adrian agreed. But also, maybe come back for us? Eventually? June looked straight at him. Ask me again when you prove you really trust me. Fair enough. They stood up together, June grabbing her backpack, and walked back through the airport side by side. On the way, Adrian tripped again. June grabbed his arm before he fell. Seriously, you need to see a doctor about this. It's nerves. It only happens around you. That's not reassuring, Adrian. But she was smiling. Part 2. Victor's Fall. The emergency board meeting was scheduled for 11 in the morning. 7 board members, the CFO, the head of compliance, Marcus representing IT, Adrian as CEO, and June Avery, officially invited as a technical witness. Victor walked into the room confident, smiling, clearly expecting another ordinary day of corporate politics. His smile froze when he saw June sitting at the table. What What is she doing here? Miss Avery was invited by me, Adrian said, his voice cold and professional, to present evidence of corporate fraud. The room fell into complete silence. June stood, connected her laptop to the projector, and began. She wasn't nervous, she didn't stutter, she didn't hesitate. She showed the forged logs, the altered timestamps, the tracked IPs, the stolen credentials, and then she showed the file that changed everything, the hidden financial transfers. For 2 years, June said, her voice steady and clear, Victor Hale diverted $4.7 million from this company into offshore accounts. Small amounts disguised as system processes, invisible to basic audits. She enlarged the data, but not invisible to someone who knows where to look. One of the board members stood up, shocked. This is a very serious accusation. And I have undeniable proof, June replied, switching to another screen. Including the log I accessed accidentally on my first night of work. The one Victor saw, the one that made him sabotage my reputation to silence me before I understood what I had found. Every eye turned to Victor. He was pale, his hands shaking slightly. This is ridiculous. She's clearly manipulating data to get revenge. Marcus Chen, IT lead, independently verified all evidence, Adrian interrupted, and signed a full technical report confirming every detail. Marcus stood. Everything Miss Avery presented is verifiable and undeniable. Victor Hale committed serious corporate fraud. Victor shot out of his chair. I will not sit here and listen to. Sit, the board chair ordered, his voice sharp as steel. Victor sat. The meeting continued for another 40 minutes. Every piece of evidence was presented, checked, documented. In the end, there was no doubt. Victor Hale was guilty. The board chair made a phone call. 10 minutes later, 2 security officers walked into the room. Mr. Hale, one of them said, "You'll need to come with us." Victor looked around the table, searching for allies, finding only cold and accusing stares. When he was escorted out, he walked past June. For a second, their eyes met. And June saw it. Absolute defeat. "You should have stopped when I warned you," Victor whispered. "And you should have been honest from the beginning," June replied calmly. And he was taken away. When the room emptied, the chairman of the board turned to June. "Miss Avery, I would like to formally apologize on behalf of this company for what was done to you. Thank you. And I would like to offer you an official position, Senior Technical Analyst. Salary based on your skill, not on your degree. Full benefits, and a public apology sent to every department in the company." June blinked, trying to process it. "I accept," Adrian smiled, a genuine, proud smile. June was alone in the hallway on the 22nd floor, leaning against the window, looking out at the city below and trying to process everything that had happened in the past few hours. Footsteps approached. Marcus. He stopped a few feet from her, hands in his pockets, looking nervous. "Hi." June replied, turning to him. "Thank you for everything, for the evidence, the report, for believing." Marcus nodded, but there was something else in his expression, something he needed to say. "June, there's something I need to tell you." She frowned. "What is it?" He took a deep breath. "The messages, the anonymous messages you received." Marcus looked at her. "They were mine." June went completely still. "What?" "I started to suspect Victor about 3 months ago. Small, strange things, accesses at unusual hours, files that made no sense. But I didn't have solid proof. And he was, the operations director. I couldn't accuse him without absolute certainty." Marcus ran a hand through his hair. "When you were hired and the failures started appearing under your name, I saw the pattern. It was the same thing he did 2 years ago with another employee. That person was fired for incompetence before they could question anything." June felt her stomach tighten. "So you knew that he was setting me up?" "I suspected, but I couldn't prove it. And I was afraid, June, afraid of exposing myself and losing my job, afraid of accusing someone so powerful without evidence." Marcus looked down. "So I did the cowardly thing. I tried to warn you anonymously. I sent those messages hoping you would stop investigating, that you would stay safe until I could get concrete proof." June remembered every message. "Be careful who you trust. Stop before it's too late. I warned you. You were trying to protect me." "Trying," Marcus agreed bitterly. "But I failed. Because you kept investigating, and Victor destroyed you anyway. And I stood there, without the courage to expose myself, while you suffered the consequences." June stayed silent for a moment. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because you deserve to know the truth. And because I can't stand myself for not having the courage to help you earlier." Marcus finally met her eyes. "I'm sorry, for being a coward, for not doing enough. June took a deep breath, thinking. Then she took 2 steps forward and hugged him. Marcus was surprised but hugged her back. "Thank you," June said softly, "for trying to protect me. Even if it was anonymous, even if you were afraid, you tried. And when it truly mattered, when Adrian asked for help, you showed up, you helped save me." When they pulled apart, Marcus's eyes were red. "You're too kind, June." "I'm not. I just know how to recognize when someone did the best they could at that moment." She smiled. "And now we brought him down. Together." Marcus smiled back. "Together." They stayed there for a few minutes. The weight of the secret finally lifted, and June felt another piece of the puzzle fall into place. All the messages, all the warnings, they came from someone who, in his imperfect way, tried to help. And in the end, it was exactly that help that made the difference. The months that followed felt like breathing for the first time after being underwater for too long. June settled into her role as senior technical analyst with an ease that surprised even her. Kevin, Roger, and Deborah never caused problems again. Or maybe they had simply learned not to challenge her. The team began consulting her about everything, from simple bugs to complex system restructuring. Adrian? Well, Adrian kept stumbling, but now he stumbled with a smile on his face, knowing she would always be there to steady him. Their relationship stopped being a secret in the 3rd week, mostly because Adrian couldn't hide the way he looked at her during meetings. Riley made sure to announce it to the entire department. Dinners became a tradition. Friday nights, always, just the 2 of them. Sometimes at an elegant restaurant Adrian insisted on paying for. Sometimes at a cheap pizza place June insisted on choosing. And sometimes late at night, they still met in the server room, working side by side, June talking to Kevin while Adrian simply watched, in love with the bright chaos that she was. Saltech thrived without Victor. The investigations revealed the diversion was even larger than they thought, almost $6 million in total. He was sentenced to 12 years in prison. June never received anonymous messages again. But Marcus became one of her best friends. And then, 1 year after that morning at the airport, on a Friday in December with the sky painted orange and pink, everything changed again. Saltech's annual event at La Jolla Beach happened every first Friday of December, and this year it was especially beautiful. Orange sunset sky, soft waves, tables spread across the sand, live music playing something gentle and romantic. June Avery, now officially a senior technical analyst, and secretly the person everyone looked for when something went wrong, was standing near the water talking to Riley. "So," Riley said, smiling mischievously, "1 year. You 2 complete 1 year officially together today." June felt her face warm. "How do you know that?" "Please. Everyone knows. You 2 are terrible at hiding it." "We are not hiding anything. You exchange looks in the middle of meetings. He trips every time you walk into a room." Riley took a sip of juice. "It is sweet. Annoying, but sweet." June laughed. "He still trips?" "Today it happened 4 times, and look, here comes the 5th. June turned. Adrian was walking toward them across the sand, his suit replaced with dress pants and a white shirt with rolled-up sleeves, and he looked visibly nervous. So nervous that he tripped over his own foot 3 meters before reaching them. Riley laughed. "I told you." Adrian recovered with questionable dignity and stopped in front of June. Hi, are you all right? You look nervous." "Me? No, I am great." He adjusted his shirt for the 4th time in 10 seconds. "Do you want to take a walk?" June looked at Riley, who was clearly trying not to laugh. "Sure." They walked along the beach, their bare feet sinking into the still warm sand, the sound of the party fading behind them. "You are acting strange today," June said finally. "Strange how?" "Like, stranger than usual. You tripped like 6 times just today." 7, Adrian corrected. "But who was counting?" June stopped, turning to him. "Adrian, seriously, what is going on?" He took a deep breath. And then, very slowly, he lowered himself onto one knee. June froze. "Adrian, what are you?" He pulled a small box from his pocket, opened it, revealing a ring that shone in the golden sunset light. "June Avery," he began, his voice trembling slightly. "1 year ago, you gave me a second chance I did not deserve. You taught me that trust is built every day. That love is not only about perfect moments, but about choosing to stay even when it is hard." He smiled. "And you taught me that talking to servers is completely normal and even recommended." June laughed, tears already falling. "You are the brightest, funniest, most impossible person I have ever met, and I want to spend the rest of my life tripping near you." He held her hand. "Will you marry me?" June looked at him. "That disastrous man who drove to the airport in a wrinkled suit to stop her from leaving, who fought for her when everyone doubted, who loved her with an intensity that still scared her sometimes. "Yes," she said, her voice unsteady. "Of course, yes." Adrian stood, placed the ring on her finger, and pulled her into a kiss. And that was when the wave arrived. A wave larger than the others, tricky, soaking both of them up to the knee. They pulled apart, laughing, drenched, and June looked at the ocean. "Really, universe? You could not wait 1 minute?" "I think the universe is celebrating," Adrian said, still holding her. "Or teasing us." "Probably both." They returned to the party hand in hand, clothes wet but smiling like fools. Marcus was the first to notice the ring. She said yes. The entire party exploded in applause and cheers. Riley ran to June and hugged her tight. "I knew he was going to propose today." "How did you know?" "He asked me to help choose the ring 3 times. Riley laughed, and he tripped in the jewelry store. June looked at Adrian, who was being congratulated by half the office, visibly embarrassed but happy. And she thought, yes, this ridiculous, soaked chaos, it is exactly what I want. Later that night, when the party was ending and most people had already left, June and Adrian sat on the sand looking at the stars. "Do you think Kevin approves?" June asked. Adrian laughed. "Kevin definitely approves. He told me himself." "You don't talk to Kevin. I started talking. You taught me." Adrian pulled her closer. "And you know, he is a great listener. He doesn't judge. He doesn't interrupt." "You're joking with me." "I am. But I'm also serious. I talked to Kevin yesterday. I asked if he thought you would say yes." June turned to him. "And what did he say?" He beeped twice, which in Kevin's language means, "Of course she will." June laughed so much she had to lean on him. And there, sitting on the cold sand, clothes still slightly damp, the ring shining on her finger, June Avery realized her life had completely changed. From invisible housekeeper to senior analyst. From the woman who talked to machines to the woman who would be the CEO's wife. And most important, from someone no one ever took seriously to someone who finally found a person who saw her exactly as she was. Chaos, brilliance, and everything in between. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too," Adrian replied, "even with you being strange, even with you tripping over everything. It's a medical condition. It's nerves. Same thing." They stayed there until the stars filled the sky and the sound of the waves was the only music they needed. And somewhere, on the 23rd floor of Soltech Industries, Kevin, the server that started it all, hummed softly, pleased with a job well done. What did you think of June and Adrian's journey? Share your thoughts in the comments. On a scale from 0 to 10, what rating would you give this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to receive more emotional stories like this. See you next time.